Well, we are now joined by Alberta's Attorney General, Mickey Amery. Thank you for the time.
Absolute pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Listen, first and foremost, just to clarify, on what grounds are you opposing the federal government's gun buyback program?
Well, on a number of grounds, really. We've said time and again that the federal gun buyback program does not achieve what it is intending or telling Canadians that it's intending to achieve, and that is public safety. We know that the federal gun buyback program disproportionately impacts law-abiding citizens all across this country. And we don't think that that is the root cause of violence in this country, nor is it targeting the illegal guns that are flowing through into our country from other places.
Now, CPAC did reach out to the federal public safety minister, and his office sent us a statement that reads in part, quote, "The Supreme Court of Canada has been clear that the Parliament of Canada has the constitutional authority to legislate on firearms, including through the Firearms Act and related criminal code provisions, as confirmed in the 2000 reference Firearms Act Supreme Court decision. The authority," the statement goes on to say, "applies across all provinces and territories." I appreciate what you're saying about, the efficacy of this program and what it's hoping to achieve, but ultimately the Supreme Court has sided with the federal government on this. Are you rejecting that?
No, we certainly respect the decision of the Supreme Court, and we're certainly say time and again that the federal government is free to enact whatever programs they think are appropriate. But it certainly is within our purview to respond to that and say that we simply will not assist or support in programs that we think are misguided and don't achieve what they're intending to achieve. We know that this program creates criminals in waiting from people who have done everything right here in Alberta and all across Canada. They have taken the gun safety courses, they've been thoroughly vetted, and they have acquired and they're storing and using these firearms in very safe manners. And so we're saying we're delivering a message to the federal government that we will not cooperate, we will not support, and we will not assist in a scheme that targets innocent law-abiding Albertans.
So you will not assist, you will not support. That does not necessarily apply to the RCMP, though, as that is a federal police force. Am I understanding you there?
Yeah, most certainly it may not apply to the federal policing services, but here's the reality. We know that the RCMP is understaffed in many provinces all across this country. We've heard from provinces like Manitoba who are saying that the vacancy rate for RCMP officers is 30%. In Saskatchewan, it's 25%, and here in Alberta, it sits at around 20% vacancy. And so we're imploring our federal counterparts to really look at the root causes of what is happening here. They are taking valuable policing resources from the serious criminals and putting it towards a gun buyback program that simply won't do anything to curb that crime that is running rampant across our country. What we've been saying is this: you're dedicating $742 million to this program, and not a single dollar is going to shoring up our borders, supporting our policing and law enforcement, or even giving any funds to prosecutions to help deal with these serious and violent criminals. That's where the money needs to go. That's where the problem lies. And we think that if the federal government were to focus on the real root causes of serious crime in this country, we'd all be so much better served.
Except that right now there is a voluntary compensation program, an amnesty period where people who do own these types of guns can turn them in for compensation. And they're now hearing from your government that it does not necessarily apply to them in Alberta. Are you essentially telling Albertans who own these guns to break the law?
What we're saying is this: we're looking at the pilot program that started in Cape Breton, and initial reports are saying that despite the efforts and all of the work that is being put forward into that pilot program, only 22 guns have been turned in. Now, we think that that is a dismal number. We think that people, Canadians all across this country, are simply rejecting the federal buyback program. We know that Alberta, Saskatchewan, and Ontario are fully aligned in our positions, and we think that many other provinces are doing the same thing. We also think that Canadians in general are rejecting this program. And what we're saying to people is this: we're not suggesting certainly that they break the law, but we are saying as a province, through our position, that we will stand by law-abiding firearm owners and we'll stand by law-abiding Albertans through and through.
But does that encourage them to break the law? I know you're not saying it to them directly, but by saying that you are going to fight this program, you're essentially giving sanction to them to ignore the federal law, are you not?
Certainly, we don't see it that way. We think that the folks that have acquired these firearms in a responsible manner, this is their property, they're entitled to it. I think that Alberta takes a very clear stand to say that, here in Alberta, we do not think it's in the public interest to target law-abiding, honest Albertans. These are folks that have done everything right, as I've said earlier, but they're also the sport shooters. They're the hunters and the farmers that are using these guns in the safest possible way. To create a scenario where we are going to pursue them and charge them and prosecute them is simply not something that we think is in the public interest. We think that our policing and prosecution resources could be better served dealing with the real criminals in our province and throughout our country. And that's what we've asked our provincial entities to focus on.
Mhm. Now, your premier got booed last weekend at the UCP convention because of there are factions in the party who were unhappy with the MOU that Premier Smith signed with Ottawa last week. And it has been suggested that this announcement comes just days after that convention, and perhaps to try to change the channel rather on what was an unpleasant weekend for the premier. What do you say to that?
Well, look, let me just clarify. I think that certainly the premier enjoyed a tremendous amount of support from party members. They were frustrated, as many of us are, with the responses from the federal government, with the jurisdictional encroachment that we've seen time and again. I think that the MOU that was announced some time ago, a week and a half ago, is a positive step in the right direction. I think that we have been asking for many years for Ottawa to respect our jurisdiction as a province, but also to support the growth of Alberta, which in turn benefits all Canadians. The MOU is a real step in a positive way, and we're very encouraged by that.
But is this stance on guns meant to change the channel on those within the party that aren't happy with that MOU?
The stance that we've taken on firearms here in Alberta and the stance that we've taken in protecting and standing by our lawful, law-abiding firearms owners has been a consistent position that we've taken for years. We can go back to the very beginning of when the federal government started to announce its intention to create this buyback scheme, and we've opposed it through and through since the very beginning. This is just a continuation of that. The policies that we put forward are policies that have been in development for a very long time as well. There is nothing that the AGM was caused that may have changed the pathway that we have been pursuing. We stand by law-abiding Albertans, and there's nothing that has changed in that position.
Thank you, Amery. I really appreciate the time. Nice to meet you.
Thank you, and pleasure.